Hi, it's Megan Boone, and you're listening to Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
I wanted to come talk to you guys because I thought you guys were real gentlemen. Just from the bit that I heard, I follow my co-star and friend Amir on Twitter, and he announced that he was going to come on your show before, when you guys were just talking before he called in. Mm-hmm. My pregnancy came up, and you were just very respectful, and you didn't consider it to be anything that you guys needed to talk about or the labor. And I thought it was such gentlemanly conduct that I wanted to encourage that in people. And thank you, and personally. So I told my assistant, I made a note on my calendar that when I came back in season 4, I wanted to go on your show.
You guys. The podcast. How are you?
Welcome to set.
Very nice to meet you, Megan. How are you?
I'm glad you're here.
Absolutely.
It's good to have real fans here. I came into this one person and I'm leaving another, and to be part of a crew and cast of people that I'm just so thankful to you guys and the fans and the people who made the podcasts and made the Tumblr pages and the Twitter accounts and who propagated and promulgated the fandom of the show. That's really what gave it its legs.
Last night, just for fun, I Googled a few fan theories regarding the Blacklist, and folks, mystery solved. The very persuasive fan has a compelling online argument that Reddington is, in fact, an alien. Mind blown. However, for a few more down-to-earth fan theories, these superfans have agreed to meet us at the secret location for a deeper dive.
At the end of season 5, when we get this big reveal, we kind of throw out some of the old camps. We had Daddygate, Lizington, and Imposter Theory. So we could say Imposter Theory, check. But now the question becomes, who is Red? We've kind of tossed around a few ideas about maybe he's Katarina's brother, so we have hashtag Uncle Theory. Or maybe he's Raymond's twin brother, and we have hashtag Twin Theory. The hashtag Mother Theory, or hashtag Red Arena, as it's now gaining traction. I think that one's become a lot more plausible than it ever has been up to this point.
Are you her father?
Listen to this, my daughter.
When you have those dialogues between characters, there's a reason why that's there. I think the biggest case where you can say that the Mother Theory kind of shows up is when Katarina and Red are sitting across from each other.
You've been here before.
Once, a long time ago, I was a very different person then. You.
Depending on how you read the actual script versus what you see on the show and how you interpret it, it's very interesting when you think about it in context.
The Uncle Theory is that Raymond Reddington is actually Katarina's brother.
Let me grab my hat. This should be fun.
In theory, he was trying to protect Katarina, and his family died as a result of this. So he has taken it upon himself to assume the identity of Raymond Reddington to protect the only family that he has left, which is Liz Keene. If it's not her dad, it's not her mom. It has to be your uncle.
We get the idea that people will think that it has to be something familial. We understand why people would go there.
You have me, and I'm not going to let anything happen to you.
There's also one theory that Raymond Reddington actually has no familiar relationship to Liz, and that she is a pawn in a necessary move of his.
Yeah, either way, if we pull this off, you'll have something to tell the grandkids.
We have no idea where this is going to go. It's a whole new show.
Hey everyone, John Bokenkamp here, writer of episode 822, Konets, English translation, The Ending. This one's brutal. You were listening to the Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
I'm not crying. You're crying. Screw it. I'm a freaking mess. Welcome to this special live edition of the award-winning The Blacklist Exposed podcast. Greetings, one and all. I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson, and it's the end of the Blacklist world as we know it. I don't feel fine. I just don't. But thanks for joining us yet again for the season finale. This is season 8 finale of The Blacklist as we discuss Konets, a.k.a. The Ending, written by series creator John Bokenkamp and directed by John Terlesky. This is your one and only spoiler warning for this episode. If you've not seen 822 Konets, do not listen any further, as this will completely ruin season 8 of The Blacklist for you, all 8 seasons, and it's live. So all my fumbling will be recorded for posterity. Posterity?
But you
Posterity.
got the,
What's the word?
it's taken 8 years and you finally have gotten the pronunciation of the Blacklister right.
Yeah. I mean, you never heard the outtakes because I never get it right. Seriously, John Bokenkamp's name's really easy and I still screw that up. Jane Bokenkamp? I think that's his name.
Oh my gosh.
So show notes and info for this episode of The Blacklist Exposed can be found at theblacklistexposed.com. And Troy, before we get going, I think it's cool for me to say this now, but Deadline, you're adorable. You broke the story of Megan Boone leaving. I bet you're pretty proud. That's cool, right? You're a-holes. You are absolute a-holes. Shame on you for ruining this moment for fans, and shame on you for taking this moment away from Megan Boone and the show as well. It was her secret to spill, not yours. You're jackals. That's all I got to say.
They are just,
not happy.
Not happy.
You know, I mean, I don't want to speak to us or anything, but I know a lot of fans that were very, 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 very unhappy to hear that ahead of time. And I think now that you've seen the episode, you probably feel even worse. A little bit, because it didn't, like some people, you had only a couple options, right? And that was one of them.
Now, did you think at any point during the course of this episode this evening that maybe the Deadline article was a ruse? Maybe the Season 9 renewal was a ruse?
I did. I was getting really, really, and I did bring my hat. So I have my hat. I just can't decide if I want to wear it yet or not because I have feelings.
Much feelings.
Yeah, much feelings. I definitely feel like there were moments throughout the episode where I felt like, yeah, this is a ruse. Like the whole time they got me. I can't believe they got me, which kudos to them. I would love a TV show to do this sometime where they fake a press release or they actually say something that, oh yeah, well, we're renewed. Yeah, everybody's come back or nobody's come back or whatever. And then they dupe you at the last minute. I think that would have been fantastic. And I did think that was possible, but I was wrong.
Yes,
like I have been for 8 years. Apparently, I don't know. You know,
that's the beauty of this show. That this show does everything it possibly can to make you go option A, and then boom, option B shows up. Even like in the standalone episodes of Blacklisters, you got that. Well, it's going to be no, it's that. It's totally something different, and they really did a great job when you think about it overall. This was a fantastic season 8 finale for a season that some of us maybe thought, maybe not one of the better ones, but they definitely landed on the right notes, and it was magical.
I haven't had my say yet, so this is just Troy's opinion.
Yes, we'll bring it back just for the fun of it. So much fun.
Thoughts. I'm split down the middle on several things.
Well, we are so glad that all of you, the fans, have tuned in for this live discussion tonight here at the End of All Things. We want to get into this super, super quick, so we have to finish up last week with a question, our profiling question that we've been doing for 8 seasons. And last week, the question was, Aaron.
Did Nachello, see, that's what I do.
Or Nachala, depending on, I don't know. I'm not.
Did Nachalo confirm Red was Katarina? Where there was a shift to people saying it played heavily into that theory, confirmation it was not. And there was a ton of discussion over the past week, over 100 comments, plus the live chat alone on YouTube, let alone Facebook and Twitter. If nothing else, it goes to show why this was renewed for season 9, because the fan base is still heavily engaged. 84% said new confirmation. 16% said, yeah, there was confirmation. And we'll talk about this episode later in terms of confirmation, but this is for the previous episode. The no's specifically were keen in on the third man in the fire besides Ilya and flannel shirt Merc, the one that looked like Reddington that fell down, had the crop top and everything else, or the fact that Naval Officer Raymond Reddington was in the car and no one saw him die, or the fact that Katarina never really led a relatively normal life by most people's opinions, nor had the severe scars we saw on Red's back in season 1. I do think that one is up for debate because we didn't see under the shirt, obviously. So there you go. The yes crowd keyed in on the shared voices. The line, everything is about you is a lie, and the complete transformation line, etc.
Yeah, especially the transformation line, complete transformation directly into it's a man's world. from James Brown. Then plus the naval officer, Raymond Reddington, has been confirmed dead as a doornail almost every single season of the show by us, by the show, by the writers. So we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Oh, dead. He's so dead. Why are we still talking about him as if he's alive? He's so dead. And there's no alcohol in this time. I'm just letting you know. My cup has water.
Yes, Aaron has to be completely focused this week. But I think after tonight's finale, I think everybody listening knows where I have stood for 7.5 years prior to this season. And if you're tuning in for the first time, I am 100 million% on Red was Katerina Rostova. And what's interesting is that I even asked that exact question to John Bokenkamp and John Eisendrath directly back in season 3.
So walk with me on this one. The other third camp is that Red is an imposter. He's not really the Raymond Red Reddington that was a naval intelligence officer that went off the grid. The clues are, of course, in season 1, he goes and sees the plastic surgeon in Miami.
Let me look at you. You look great. I mean, the elasticity is amazing.
So then in season 2, we get to the end of the road, and Naomi's sitting there, and if this is the woman that he was supposedly married to, says, you look a little bit different.
You look so different.
Not as different as you.
When we get into season 3, Red is in his own mind, and he's reliving this Katerina Rostova concept. Is, in fact, Raymond Reddington, Katerina Rostova, the same person?
I love that people take the time to think about these things.
I can't deny that, your idea that Red is an imposter. Yes, that is a theory that you lay out a good math for.
It's super fun to guess at. And, the truth is, even if we said yes to every one of your questions, people will be like, they're lying. It's not true. The best answers we can give, better than hearing us say it now, are the ones that we give on the show.
Raymond Reddington. It's not who you think he is.
So the big question, Aaron, was tonight, going into the episode, where were you specifically, where were you on the Red is Cat train, or Red was Cat train?
Where was I specifically? Yeah. The big question leading into this episode for everybody that was watching the show. I don't think they gave it.
That would have been Troy's question.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's Troy's question. I love how you cue it to yourself. I think, when I was... originally, when I asked Daniel Knopf what he thought of your theory, that very question early in season 3, I have to ask you something to see if you can at least put it to bed and kill it for me. That would be fantastic. If you can't, if you can't speak to it, I understand. But Troy has this ridiculous theory, and everybody's got a theory. That's fine, but his is insane. Seriously, Daniel, okay. This is insane. That Red, obviously, is not her father, but is her, in fact, Liz's mother. Yeah, let that sink in. I swear to you.
That's really funny. That's good.
I swear to you.
If that's the way it pans out, that would be fantastic. That one, I'm going to well, you're going to be broadcasting this, so they'll hear it. But I'm definitely going to sit down with John tomorrow. And I'm going to pitch that and take total credit for it because it sounds like a Knopf pitch to me.
There you go. See, I asked. And then what's funny is I firmly believe, I'm sure Bokenkamp at some point can tell us for sure, or Daniel Knopf can tell us for sure, but I don't feel he actually knew. It seemed to me from that interview, he didn't actually know for sure at that time who Red was. My opinion. And then later he wrote Cape May. So I thought, is he and John Bokenkamp like using this as some kind of clever diversion? Because genius, honestly. Because after Cape May, I moved, a little left of center. Then you get to Rosfiat, and I was very close to saying yes because of Red's talk with Dom and all the talks with Dom, honestly. And then after Katerina was introduced, we both took a step back. I think both of us took a step back. You have to admit, even you took a step back.
Yeah, I had as a very firm stance that I said the only way I would let the theory go is if Red himself said, "Hi, Katerina," to another person on the show. And that's exactly what happened at the end of season 6. And I went, oh, man. And I was super depressed for the whole summer.
Yeah, you were pretty sad. And then Katerina, we got to the Belgrade mystery. And Troy and I immediately figured that one out. I mean, I don't think we're super smart or anything. I just feel like we figured that one out. And once I realized that she was a plant, I thought, you know what, it's true. But like I said last week, they're never going to go through with it because it's network TV. It really felt like that's the only, I mean, yes, it could be an uncle. I'm still, uncle's alive. And that's the one thing I do want to say. There's still, up until last week, were several theories that were very viable based on the information we have. Last week filled in a lot of holes. So all the people saying, well, I've known it since season. No, you didn't. You thought it. You didn't know it. There's a difference. So all the people that had different theories, it's perfectly okay. But I never thought they'd do it on network TV. And as you know, some of my time on the podcast has been yang to your yin, and someone had to consider other options. So I've tried to do that this whole time because one of us has tunnel vision. Would you agree with that?
I'm 100% tunnel vision until the season 6 finale. And then I was like, okay, let me start going back to the drawing board. And I did a full rewatch after the end of season 6 to try to figure out a different possible concept, which led us to that whole uncle, twin, time traveler, all that fun stuff.
So until last week, I still thought that the uncle or family spy friend was still in play. It doesn't mean like I leaned one way or the other. Just they were still in play. They were. I mean, based on what we knew, you could make that work if you wanted to. They could totally go that way before last week, I think. But last week's episode was almost like a seed episode. Plus, they planted the seeds I needed to hear to think they respected the situation as much as the character, which I talked about last week. I won't do that again, but you just go listen to last week's episode or watch last week's YouTube video, whatever. So walking in this week, long-winded way to get to your answer, it was probably a 98%. 2% was designated to that random bald dude they tossed in last week. I'm like, well, random bald dude, 2%. Maybe who's he? Who's he? Because there were some moments where I could have seen it go another way for most of this episode.
Yeah, and
not that I thought that, but I was like, yeah, he's Katerina. It just is at this point.
And I want to say, like, Aaron's just been stellar this whole time when you think about it, because I've been, what do you want to say?
The listeners said
annoying. I've been crabby, or I don't even know what the word is, but it's basically like just incessant that this is the theory. And he's like, had to listen to me, not just on this podcast, but like almost every hour of the day. Like, but what about this episode? What about this episode? What about this episode? And what about this line? And what about this line? And he's just sitting there and he's just like, I like you, Troy. I'm just going to let you keep talking because you're going to dig yourself a grave that you'll never get out of. And I just want to thank Aaron for all the great work he's put into the show, being the yin to my yang. He's been absolutely fantastic, putting up with my crap and just being here, being present, doing everything he possibly can for you guys, the fans. I mean, really, at the end of the day, Aaron has done, I think you were doing like 3 podcasts at one time when we were in the thick of this thing. And it was just a lot of time that Aaron spent, and he still showed up every single week. Now, granted, yes, he disappeared into the mountains a few times. He wanted to go find Liz's cabin to see if there was actually dead people up there and glass inside of the ice. But he really was a trooper. And I couldn't, seriously, man, I couldn't have done this without you.
Are those real tears or are you acting? Is this
no?
Like, are you pulling me?
I still have a clip from the show, damn it. Oh my God. But yeah, no, it's been a ride.
Yeah, people don't realize we've been doing this for damn near a decade. Right?
I know most people like don't even stay in jobs 7 years, let alone like actual careers. Like this was a long time. And I mean, just some of the great memories, going to New York, going to the set, being out at the writer's room, winning the podcast award in 2017. I mean, there's no way in hell we ever would have thought we would have won that thing. And it was just to be there together with you, and just totally forgetting to thank our moms. So thanking again. Thank my mom. We both did.
I still feel horrible about that.
So thank you, Mom, for getting us to where we are here to be able to do this tonight with everybody. So
thank you, Mom.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron, for everything. The dum-dums, the dickwads, every other name you've called me over the years. Robot.
We can get bittersweet at the end.
We sure can, right?
People want to know what we... I mean, if you're listening, I assume you want to know what we thought of this episode. And
yes. And we are live.
Thoughts than Troy.
We are live. So we are having comments fly in from the YouTube and from Facebook. So keep your questions and comments coming. We will feature those at some point in the show.
Yeah.
So just keep asking your questions, keep chatting with each other, keep the experience coming for those listening on audio later. Those comments and everything should be able to be seen in the Facebook group and on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go check those out so you feel like you can be part of the show at some point in time. But Aaron runs, I bike for ice cream. So before our ice cream melts, let's go ahead and get into this week's case profile.
God, it's so weird because we're doing this live. Thanks to our patrons, by the way. So thank you.
Thank you, patrons. Woo! Absolutely.
For everybody that supports us there. That really, really helps us. But man, I don't normally hear the intro music or anything else because it's usually spliced in afterwards. So it's kind of cool when you hear it. I haven't heard it in a long time. You know, because I don't always listen to the episodes. I don't know if you know, Troy, but by the time we do this, it's many hours, and I'm like, I think I'm blacklisted out.
Yeah. I recorded it. I don't need to hear it again.
Exactly. All right, our case profile. You know, we always go down the crux of the episode before jumping into characters to get to the meat of the episode. And there's a lot of meat on this one. But first, we need to take a second to once again, we haven't done this very much this season, but I want to thank Diego's stylist. His
Absolutely.
hair in a hospital bed when he's running through the streets, half dead, hair stellar, doesn't move. Whoever does that and puts that concrete on his head, you deserve an Emmy or whatever they give people who make sure that people's hair don't move, because it's fantastic.
And we apologize that we can't clap for you because the clapping is reserved for somebody else. So fist bump for the hair department.
It is. This season it's reserved for the guy who got overshadowed by wrestler in the montage. Tom's dead. Tom's dead.
One more time with feeling.
Oh, I felt so good. And I'm like, oh, wrestler got so many more seconds. That's so much better. I like it. Okay. So remember last week when Liz kept saying that she has the why. Now she wants the who. Then she followed that up 14 more times saying, who are you? I want to know who you are. Well, that blast and that bullet loosened her up on that, because most of this episode, Red doesn't tell her anything. Gets Liz out of there. She's all good with Reddy again. We move pretty quick back to happy times. So I'll come back in a second. But Red makes a deal. I'll tell you who I am. I wrote it all down in this letter. This is a nitpick. You can have it, but only if you kill me. Is that fair? I'm asking you, Troy. Is that a fair deal? Honest engine. Is that a fair deal?
I'd pull out a gun right now and shoot him and just take the letter. I mean, she already blew up a hospital. Why not kill somebody in a hospital, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what the fans wanted. The fans were like, open a jammed envelope. Oh, my God. Like, you already burned it the first time in a caretaker. Why'd you write it again? Ugh.
I did not like this setup. I know there, and I want to be clear because I know show listens and I love the people that work on the show. I think they do a fantastic job. It's a fantastic show. I'm not knocking it. I am knocking the setup. I don't like the setup. I told you that, and I'm going to be very honest. I felt like, how many times does Liz have to flip-flop on something this whole season, it kind of like, in my opinion, sets her back a little bit on the whole season, you know, because the whole season, that's been the goal. The whole goal is get that answer. And then last episode, got a bunch of answers except the one she wanted. And I'm not saying we needed to hear it, but she deserved to hear it at that point. And very much was given the impression that she was going to hear it. Not, well, only if you kill me. Because what if she doesn't go through with that horrible, horrible thing, then she can't ever find out, even though you just told her she could? I mean, I don't like that setup at all. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, because he's just going to die eventually. And then on his deathbed, he'll be like, oh, here's the answer. I'm dead. And you'll be dead too soon because you didn't take my offer.
Yeah, I mean, the letter was already written. So, I mean, all Dembe had to do was hand her the letter. But still, I just, if I was her, I would have snatched it out of his hand. I wouldn't have had a conversation. I mean, you got 20, 30 years on him. Take it. Take it. You're nimble. You're quick. I've seen you move. You can get it. I promise you. You can get it before he walks out of that room. So yeah, I didn't like that portion of it.
Yeah, I wish
There's
it would have
stuff I love in this episode. I'm not knocking the whole episode. That I don't like.
Yeah, it could have been something like, I have a letter in a safe deposit box or something, or in order to get the safe deposit box, meet me here at this time and I'll give you the key. Maybe that would have been a little bit better, because then at least it would have been a reason to come to meet him at the spot, versus just like, I got it right here. Come on, let's go play tag in the park and you can chase me and get it.
That was a part of it. Like, I mean, that's what fans, I think, have complained about for a while is, well, she flips too quick, and she's right back to the Liz she was before Katarina walked in. You know what I mean? So that becomes a problem, I think. I do. I think the episode still plays. The ending mostly plays. I have a big problem with, did she or didn't she realize it at the end? But we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's just the letter in itself was a setup issue I have.
Makes sense.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Because we'll go back to characters. We'll come back to some stuff.
Yeah.
So Liz ultimately weighs her options, and upon meeting the little girl she saved, is it Beth, right?
Yeah, Beth, the general's daughter from the pilot.
So cute. Liz decides to attempt to go through with it. So the plan is very simple. Wait outside Pascal's. The new restaurant Red's opening. He's been there all season. And when Red gives a signal, Liz is to come out of her car, shoot him dead. Therefore alerting the world that she should be taken seriously as a threat, that she killed Raymond Reddington. How do you feel about that portion of the setup? Like, I think
the setup is great.
Do you feel like that works for you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in order to be a criminal and rise up and be better than the best criminal in the world, which was Raymond Reddington, this absolutely 100% is the only way that she could have ensured her safety. Take over the empire, get all the money in the world, get all of the resources, because it was backed up on a computer somewhere. Red just didn't know where, because he doesn't like digital. But the blacklist is still functioning. All the intel is still moving. And so I totally buy the plan. I thought it was a fantastic plan, especially given the illness. Obviously the plan did not work out because this is the blacklist. And I'm just like, thank God it wasn't Wrestler that pulled the trigger or Aram that pulled the trigger. Because I'm like, oh, great. Here comes the FBI. They're going to mess this thing up.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with who pulled the trigger. I mean, that works. He wasn't there. He didn't blow up, etc.
Right.
It's what I already talked about. And it's just, I don't, part of me is like, well, didn't you just keep this Katerina Rostova alive for like 30 years in hiding? Can't you just do that? I mean, I'm just saying, can't you just do that? Just thought.
Like do that to Liz?
Yeah. That's kind of what I thought was going to be. I mean, that's why I was very firm that they weren't going to kill her off. I was wrong. I felt like that seems like a pretty easy solution, because that's what you just did to the woman who was basically Katerina Rostova in the wild. She's been in hiding for 30 years. Now, maybe I don't want to do that, but it's possible, is all I'm saying.
It's an easy way to change out the actor for the show if the actress is leaving. Absolutely.
Get some reconstructive surgery. That's right. You got Dice. He's still available, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So bring him back, do some plastic surgery. If you want to, I wouldn't want to recast, honestly. I mean, she's been on 8 years. I think that would probably be a disservice to the role. But still.
But that was the good thing about the show. The show had options. And that's what I think with this episode played very well, given the deadline news, that you really didn't know until the last minute. Like, is the deadline article fake? Is it going to be go into hiding? Is it going to be death on the sidewalk? You just did not know. So at least we weren't completely spoiled for the ending.
I just will say that, to me, this says, and fans are going to hate that I say this, but by all of this, basically, I don't trust Red's plans anymore. I mean, his 30-year plan failed. This plan wasn't that bright, honestly, when I think about it.
His longtime confidant turned on him in season 4.
Yeah, I just, I mean, maybe it's time we acknowledge that. Maybe Red's not as insightful on plans as he thinks, especially long-term ones.
Right.
Because this did not work out at all. But
that'd be word for his portfolio at this point.
There's still a lot of good. There's still a lot of good in this episode. So I don't want to sound like, because I love last week. So I'm just being honest. So the task force figures it out, heads over to stop Liz. Liz says a very tearful goodbye to her daughter, Agnes. That was a very sweet moment. I like that. Pulls the gun on Reddington, only to realize she can't do it. So Red understands, but Townsend's Boz double henchman, Boz look-alike double henchman, doesn't understand and shoots Liz on the street. Red kills him, obviously, so he is dead, and then holds Liz in his arms as she montage remembers all that died before her. And Liz dies, but as she does, we are treated to what appears to be nods to how Reddington sees Liz, and then she's gone. Now, we'll talk more about the actual montage and the death, but what did you think about the death? I was shocked. You were shocked, I believe.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I think it's safe to say that since Megan's leaving, like, we knew for a while that she was leaving. We were just not complete assholes like Deadline was, and kept that to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that as the episode played out, I was like, I swear to God, she was leaving. This doesn't seem like she's leaving. So I think that all the editing, all the work, all of the time put into the episode, just to get it done and across the goal line. I mean, everybody that's been a long time listener of the podcast knows we have friends on the show. Obviously, John comes on the podcast. You know, they were still putting this thing together like this morning. So it's just like the amazing work that they were able to do to get it over the goal line, to get it out there for the fans on time.
Editing is fantastic.
I think it was great. Yeah. It was so super, super. The montage.
I love the music cues. Yep.
Oh my gosh. Z, who's been on Twitter. I know he's been gone for a little bit. He mentioned that it took like 4 days to put the montage together. 4 days. Like, holy cow, that is a lot of time. And it's
a great
beautiful
montage. I've rewatched it like 15 times. So it's
oh yeah.
it's
cry every single time.
It's a great
every
montage.
time. Oh, such great work.
Yeah, and it really, especially if you really, really, really pay attention, especially the very last clip is very important, which we'll come back to. I think it's very important. Maybe you feel
very important, but absolutely.
But it's very important to distinguish when that moment happens.
Yeah, correct. But the montage doesn't work without some fantastic music. And we always talk about music on the show. And this evening started out with Dig This by Hank Mobley, the remastered version specifically from 1999, Rudy Van Gelder edition. And then when they were in the park, we hear the most beautiful cover of Somewhere Only We Know that's originally by Keane, but this was performed by Renee Dominique. And probably, I think, my new favorite version of this song. It was so good. I blubbered through the entire sequence there as well. Then at the restaurant party, we are actually treated to Keep Watch by Adult Karate. And then as Liz's life flashes before her eyes, literally in Red's arms, we hear One Last Dream by Radical Face, which, fun fact, Radical Face was actually the first big band of the series back in the pilot with Welcome Home. So it actually ends where it begins. What a beautiful, beautiful, touching moment to close up there. And all of those songs from all of the 8 seasons of The Blacklist are on the playlist, both on Spotify and on Apple Music. You can get links to both of those over at theblacklistexposed.com, and we'll have all of that up there for you so that you can go ahead and listen to all 8 years of great music.
Somebody on Facebook did say it was Boz that killed Liz. No. That's just he looks just like Boz from a few years ago that killed off.
Yeah.
And somebody else is like, your mic is quiet. Well, that's because I talk quiet. That's just, we get to spruce it up in post, but
for sure.
Yeah. So listen closely and you'll hear me. I promise. Okay. So characters. Park. She didn't have anything to do this episode. So there you go. Cooper thinks Liz should take Red's spot. That was an interesting development. Would you say from Mr. Cooper, Mr. Straightforward, Mr. Straight Arrow, Boy Scout?
No, I think that's right. I think that Cooper wants to make sure she's safe, she's protected. He's always been the father figure in her life, that she just wants to see her alive. And then if she's at least going to take over the Empire, then he gets to work with her still, be part of the task force. That's how she gets back to becoming part of the FBI without being part of the FBI, because then she gets an immunity deal from Panabaker. So no, I think Cooper still 100% in character the entire time the show has been on the air, except for maybe that one episode in season 5.
So you think this fits?
This fits. I like it.
I mean, okay. I mean, it would lead to, they still can keep the blacklist open. They can still do the cases, So I can see that. And plus it would get Liz in the clear. It would get her an immunity deal.
Yeah. I mean, like, hypothetical example, right? Red dies, Liz stays, Liz takes over. Show could continue just like it's always gone on before, just without Spader, which then the show really wouldn't continue because most of us watch because James is on the show.
Right. Ram, love the helium balloon bit. that whole scene, probably my favorite moment in the whole episode, honestly. Minus, I think the montage is up there, obviously. That whole scene and Red and Dembe joining in, I thought was magic. I did not expect that because, they don't let them cut up that much. I mean, that's very kind of childish, and, it was perfect for a rom that fits the character. Amir nails that kind of tone. But I did not expect very serious. Dembe did it, and that I just loved it. I absolutely loved that moment. I thought that was the best moment of the episode.
I believe the Writers Room Twitter account put up a poll during the course of the show. They said whose helium voice was better, and Dembe was the clear winner.
Easily, because he's got the sexiest voice you've ever heard. I mean, he's like, "Hello, Red," and I'm just like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And then he does the helium, and I'm like, "It's still kind of sexy." I don't I don't know, but I was still a little like, "Hisham, all right, I guess no matter what you sound like, it works."
It sure does. It sure does.
And it's good to get a little light fluff in there, a little feel good before everything goes to hell.
Well, the entire episode feels like, if you're reading a novel, right, this feels like last week was the climax, and then this episode felt very much like a denouement, right? Nice, slow, easy, relax into the final page, and then you hit that final page and you're like, holy crap, where did that 2-ton weight come from on my chest? And why is it raining in here?
But Liz also asking for forgiveness, for Aram's forgiveness. I thought that was a very poignant scene. We've said forever that Amir is very much the heart of the show, I think, in many respects. I think this season he's really been lacking in terms of presence. That's a personal opinion. I'd like to see more Aram for sure. I think there's probably more opportunity next season, I would imagine. So, but that was a very sweet scene, and it was very nice that Liz wasn't trying to use him for anything. She was just being genuine and saying, "Hey, you're my friend. What I'm about to do is not going to make you proud of me, but please forgive me." I love that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Their relationship over the years. I mean, you even heard it in the clip from Megan, that Megan and Amir directly, both of them have a very good friendship. So to see it play out on screen as these two characters, right, I think was just a joy over the last 8 seasons. And so glad we got to be there and then have that phone call. I mean, it would have been nice for Aram and Liz to actually have seen each other before the end, but at least she did make the phone call, so they had one last touching moment before she parted.
Exactly. Very touching. Okay. Wrestler. Are there no cops working this week? Like, all these fugitives are strolling around the park, and then Liz is like, I got a little costume, strolls into the hospital where the federal agent was just shot and probably suspected that one top of the most wanted list might show up. And she just strolls on in, takes a plop in the bed, has a little, "Hey, how you doing?"
Brown-haired woman likes to blow up hospitals. Be on the lookout, unless she's wearing white lab coat.
Right. She should not be anywhere near a hospital without a bunch of flyers everywhere. So that was, I love the scene because it's a sweet scene between the two of them, but you have to admit, you got to swallow some. There's some
TV magic going on there.
There's some TV dynamic there, because it's like, what? But I think we can finally say, guys, Keenler is the way.
Officially.
It's official.
Only because, first and foremost, Aaron, Tom is dead.
Now you're just like treating me like a monkey, and I don't appreciate it. You're just like, because I'm going to clap.
Push those buttons.
I have to clap because he's dead. And by the way, can I say it again? Wrestler got more montage time. Yes,
he did.
He did.
So congratulations, 8 seasons, Keenlers. You get to take a victory lap tonight as well.
Boom, 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 boom. But Tom does he's in there.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but Wrestler gets more time. Because he's a better person. That's right. I said it. I don't care who looks better with stubble. And also, his hair never moves. And I think you should get the girl if you're here if it stays that fine. Mm-hmm. All right. So we move to, I don't know what that meant. I just sometimes talk. Dembe, he is Red's confidant here. He doesn't get a lot to do except for the helium bit, which we already talked about. But he does have a very warm hug when he thinks Red is going out for his last walk, essentially. And he now has the letter that I wonder is going to be a plot device for season 9. Like, it's just going to be floating around somebody's going to get their hands on it. It's going to be trying to get the letter back, those kinds of things. Or do you think the letter?
Well, Townsend knew,
destroyed?
so at least the information I think is already out in the world. So the question is how far has that information spread? Was it just to his number 2? Did more than the number 2 know? How many of Townsend's people are still out there? So I think what's going to be interesting next season is now that the thing is known, right? The magical answer that everybody's been waiting for, we think, depending on how you interpret it, that I think that's going to be interesting to see how they play that and keep that quiet, or if they're going to lean into it and actually say, yep, that's 100%, and actually, talk about it next season. I think it's very interesting to see where this is going to go. I mean, it's literally, like I said, it's a whole new show, almost like starting over from a blank slate for season 9.
In many ways, and we'll definitely come back to what's going to happen now. But that letter's in play. It's still there somewhere. I can't imagine. They showed a close-up of it many, many times. I can't imagine it doesn't come back into, unless he puts it in a safety deposit box for Agnes or something.
Yeah, I mean,
because she ain't going to understand it right now, based on what I think. It'd be very complicated.
It'd be very challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, the brain does live on for a little bit. Maybe they hook her up to a computer. They read, goes through a teletype machine, and
sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we're finally to Red. We are at the final 2 characters because that's where most of the good stuff happened this week. So the letter is set up to get the answer because there's other things that go into that. Why is there this kill me set up? Because if you know who I am, you could never do it. Understanding that she can't go through with it, do you think this whole plan even makes sense? I mean, just all of it, because he seemed okay that she couldn't go through with it. So I'm kind of confused. Like, did he have an ulterior plan there?
I'm sure he did. I would think that somewhere he's got a sniper, Chuck or somebody is sitting in a van and they pull the trigger from afar. So it looks like, because on the CCTV, it would look like Liz shot him. I'm pretty sure Red planned with a backup plan and then ended up being somebody else that was there too that shot Liz, unfortunately.
Okay. So what did you think of, because if you know who I am, you could never do it? Now, I know what you're thinking, but you should probably say it out
loud. Because if you know who I am, you could never do it, because in that photo, I was there. Now, everybody's going to be like, of course he was there. He was taking the picture. It's like, that's not what he said. He paused and said, I was there. I knew her better than anyone. And if you knew who I am, then you would never do it. So to me, it was like, holy crap, flash the bells. Red Arena's confirmed 100%.
I don't think I confirmed it, but it definitely alluded to it.
Alluded to it very heavily.
Yeah, because it is very clear. She does ask 2 questions. She says, was that you? Someone took the picture, this photo, the one with Liz and her mother. Someone took the picture. Was that you?
No
you
answer.
You were there, weren't you? And he's like, I was there.
I was there.
Yeah. So he answers, and as we know, he doesn't lie to Liz. That seems to be proven. Although I still say omission is lying, but hey, apparently the writers do not agree with me. They are on Troy's side, which means, I don't know, wives might want to do some lie detector tests. I'm just saying. A lot of omissions going on. Just saying. All right. I think I got some in trouble. Sorry. I'm just kidding. So what did you think about the Alice in Wonderland statue? You take a more literal approach to this than I do.
Why don't we go? We're on live. So let's go ahead and just pull it up. All right. Okay. So this is the statue from Central Park in New York City. And if you look here, I'm going to bring my cursor this way so I can have a pointer.
Can't wait to see what the later podcast people think.
So we have Alice in the center of the statue for those that are listening on audio. So Alice is in the center of the statue. Now, Alice is a female in this crazy world of creatures. So you could actually take this as Alice or Katerina in a crazy world of criminals and spies and all of that stuff. And then just over her right shoulder, or to your left as you're looking at the statue, there is the Cheshire Cat, which everybody knows. Schrodinger's cat, the cat story that was in the taxi, the Cat in the Hat, all that fun stuff. Red is literally looking at Alice, cuts back to Red, looks at the cat, cuts back. And because of that, you're just like, oh my gosh, like how can it not be more obvious at that point? Yeah. So that is the Alice in Wonderland statue from
because you read it as it's a cat, therefore cat, right? That's what you read.
Yes, exactly.
You saw very literal.
Very literal. Well, it's interpretive, but literal interpretation.
I saw it more metaphorical. I mean, Alice in Wonderland goes down a rabbit hole. I think that very much alludes to the entire story, both their stories, Liz and Red's. I think the cat is a Cheshire cat, and also if you read Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire cat could disappear except for its grin, so basically faded away except for its grin. It could very much be like an allusion to Katerina fading into the darkness, so to speak. So I think there's
always being present because the grin never
Sure.
goes away.
Right, always being present. So there's a metaphorical and a literal way to look at it, I suppose. I think that's probably a perfect representation of that. I prefer metaphorical because I just feel like that's subtle. I'm not a big look, cat. I just feel like that's a little on the nose.
But how random to be the show, right? Filming in New York City and have this available to them. It's not like they had to build this on a set or something for the show. Like this is just sitting there in Central Park. Like how cool is that? That's just like fate. I think at in some ways, because we're just sitting there and going like, and we didn't even see the statue when we were in New York. So it's like now we have to go back and go find the statue.
Sure. And also find the cops because they're nowhere around these fugitives. Right. Okay. So why can't I know? We already talked about this why can't I know who you are until after you're dead? Because if you knew beforehand, you never kill me. And that's important to remember that line as we go into Liz. Now, Liz has a very interesting conversation where they're talking about her being a criminal, her being essentially quote unquote bad person. Is that what I am, or is what I am because of you? And then Red also basically has his thoughts in terms of, well, I've thought about this very, very often. Is it in the DNA? When I re-entered your life, re-entered words. What did you think about this whole conversation? I thought this is a very actually meaningful conversation. I love this moment because I'm like, thank God they had this conversation. It's an interesting paradigm.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. Ask your question differently for me, please.
I don't know what you want. Ask yourself this question differently. I'm not
a
your
dumb
monkey. I don't dance for you.
Fine. I wasn't listening. I was reading the comments. I'm so sorry.
That's
repeat
fantastic.
The question.
Thanks. What a great podcast partner. I'm glad this is 8 years and you still don't listen to a damn thing I say.
This is the stuff that gets edited out. Everybody's getting to hear what it really looks like now.
No, you leave it in. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that only makes himself look good. I know you always do that. That's what happens when you're in charge of editing. You can always make yourself sound great, which you have many times. Many times I've listened going, you cut that whole thing where you were wrong out. Like, you have no idea how many times Troy has been wrong on stuff, and he cuts it out when Aaron was right. I got to cut that out. What? Why? Has I got that right?
Anyway, what was your question again? Sorry.
Let's talk about Rosfiat and how he had a whole conversation about how everything you saw on screen was real. It's just what you heard that wasn't true. And you're like, no, the whole thing was a story. And then it took a while, and then you finally came around. None of that was in the podcast. I'm just saying. Just saying. Whatever.
What was your question?
What did you think about the conversation where they debate being her being a criminal? Is that what I am, or is what I am because of you?
I thought the line was fantastic, actually.
The whole conversation, I mean, just with her and Red going back and forth.
Yeah. No, I think what was great about it was that if you look at this season in particular, because I know a lot of people, you especially, were really upset about the fact that Liz wasn't present in the first half of the season. And then we get Mizir, and then she finally comes into it. And that whole thing was, is she really a bad guy? Can she really go through with killing Red? Can she really do the Cyranoid thing? Can she do, and you see her human emotions come out. She throws up after the Cyranoid death. So you know that she's not a bad person. By definition, she is absolutely a criminal for the things that she pulled.
Yeah,
especially with the airplanes. Like, that's like, grounds to never come out of a jail cell ever again. But the fact that, is she this person, or did she become this person because Red entered her life? Abso-freaking-lutely. Like, this is something where you go, like, none of this stuff would have happened to this poor woman had you not shown up. And then you go, oh wait, but no, none of this stuff would have happened if it wasn't for Tom not keeping it in his pants. Because Tom's the one that was the catalyst.
Now
because if Tom If Tom hadn't
Keep
right,
going. Yeah.
because if Tom hadn't married her,
Jackass
Red wouldn't
Tom.
have had to come out of the shadows.
And don't hit your wife, you jackass. Don't like Tom.
Or try to kill your wife.
Yeah.
Or slam a door on her.
Yeah. Oh, but I'm sorry. What?
And get her a real ring, for Pete's sake. Come on. She earned it.
I can't with that. All right, so let's move on to Liz. Or we kind of are on Liz, but I before we get to the horrible part.
Meat.
Yeah, the horrible part. There's a moment in the park, even though I am 100% saying, why did she flip-flop so fast when she still didn't get her answer? She's all back on, Team Red and happy times and skipping through the park and everything else. And yes, that bugs me, and I know a lot of people listening, it bugs them too. On the same token, holding hands with the Red in the park, the whole scene I thought was beautifully done. Seeing Red play with Agnes was beautifully done. Just the whole section, even though I have a real freaking problem with it, and I'm going to come back to it in a second, but I got to talk about that scene because I thought still that was a beautiful scene. I wasn't in tears, but it was getting dusty in my area. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm a softie. I'm like, oh my gosh, or like the family of ducks is sitting there, the whole family's together. Most importantly, though, I think, and this was great from the promo production, all the people that put photos up on everybody's like, oh my gosh, look, Liz and Red are holding hands just like she wanted. And I'm like, oh no. In the gin, what she wanted was to be holding hands with her husband and her child. So what this really was a representation of, if you guys remember, was the drawing that was in Katerina's stuff that was at the summer cottage that burned up in the fire. And then we got to see that a couple times, was Liz standing in the middle holding mom and dad's hand. And then as they're walking through the park, you're just like, oh my gosh, she's holding her mother's hand, but also in a weird way, her father's hand at the same time.
Interesting. Now I can come back to the stuff that bothers me, which is what people want to hear. They want to hear that. They want you to tell me I'm wrong.
That's usually what people sign up for. Absolutely.
How do you feel about how Liz was handled this season and this episode in particular? Because I am not thrilled.
Is there something specific you want to talk about, or is there like in general? I mean, we've talked about the flip-flopping for 8 seasons, right? I mean, I don't think we have to go into that. We know that.
But that's like a huge freaking flip-flop, man. The whole season was built. The whole season was built around how mad she was that Katerina was killed and that she's sick of not getting the answer, and she's not going to stop until she gets the answer. And then she gets answers to everything but the question she's asking, says he'll tell her, and she's okay with waiting. And then it's this whole, to me, that part was a real freaking problem. Like for the whole episode to work completely. Like this episode could have been fantastic. I think it was close to where it could have been fantastic. It's not Liz dying that I have the biggest problem with. It's that portion of it. Well, that and did she know by the end? Because like I said, we don't need to know. I am fine with that. You don't have to 100% say it for us right now. You do by the end of the show because you've made so much about his identity. I don't see any way you can not do that without really being just wrong to the fans. But she needed to know. I've told you this all season. She has to know by the end of the year, or I have a problem with the arc. It's debatable whether she knows by the end. And he didn't tell her. That's my biggest problem.
Yeah, it never came from Red's mouth. It would have been like her realization as that transformation scene of Katerina into Liz, which was a little weird, by the way. Maybe we'll talk about that in a bit. But no, I think the flip-flopping thing, like I've said it 100 times on the podcast, season 6, episode 11 or 12, the death row, the I love you, like that's where the Liz character got derailed. Like there is no way that you're literally inches from death and you're not going to ask him the question. The question is, who are you to me? Yep. And when she didn't ask that question and she's, I don't care. I love you. I was like, oh my God, what? And And then it was like, and then the rest of season 6 was like the president's thing. And then it was like the fake Katerina. And it's like, I feel like you could have taken some parts of that second half of season 6, some parts of season 7, some parts of season 8, squish it all into 13 to 16 episodes and been done with like a 13 episode season 7, maybe.
Okay.
Because of COVID.
We've talked about that, but we're
Yeah.
here.
We're here.
So here, he needed to tell, I don't care if it was in her final moments. God, do another whisper for crying out loud. I don't care. But
Show the
Red-
fans that she knew.
show the fans that Red told her that he finally gave her that respect, because I mean, yes, we'll talk about the tragic part of it, which is fine. I'm okay with that part of it. But that to me, I mean, I guess let's just get to it. Her debatably not knowing if her not knowing from him, to me, is an 8-year slap to the fans. That's essentially what I'm saying. I think him not telling her in any fashion, whether we hear it or not, is an 8-year slap. It doesn't mean that I think this episode failed the fans. I think that specific storyline is a slap to the fans. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and I think that that's a valid comment. I think
There's an argument to be made that she realized it at the end, but I don't think it's clear enough.
Yeah, and I think there's 3 ways you can do this, right? Option A is the way we saw it play out, right? You get the visuals. You're like, okay, camera's on her eyes, visual. Camera's on her eyes, visual. Camera goes to Dembe, then camera goes to Red. Red goes to visual of Katerina, back to Red. Like, you can get those visuals and you can pretty much make an interpretive decision based on that information.
Yeah, I think
right?
she figured it out at the end.
But
Red should have told her, period.
Or option B would be what Aaron is saying. Red just whispers in her ear what the answer is, and you hear pss, 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 pss,
or she reads the letter right before she gets out of the car, or anything, or something. She got it from Dembe. I don't know. She picked the pocket. She's a master criminal now, for crying out loud.
And option C would be the fact that when she does have a realization in those flashbacks, she at least goes, "Mom," or something. Mom.
Eyes widen.
Mother. Eyes widen.
Yeah, I know.
She
We've
smiles.
been saying if she just would have said, "Mom," like a question, I think that at least says, "Oh, she figured it out." Or eyes widen. That's literally all I needed to see was her eyes go.
Her eyes go like, "Oh my gosh!"
But instead,
that's what we all did.
Yeah, but instead they did like this transition where it's Katerina's face to Liz's face, and I think it's meant to. I'm pretty sure it's meant to convey that she finally gets that. On the same token, I just don't think it's even close to clear enough for 8 years of investment and waiting for her to get that one answer. And you can't say like she didn't deserve it, or she didn't earn it, or she didn't need to know, and because the show has made a big deal about his identity to her. That's been a very important element of the show. It's part of the mystique. It's part of the mythology. It's part of everything. It should have been.
I love this. I love this one. This one here. That's exactly what I thought too. Why don't you just pick the letter from his Red's pocket? I mean, yeah, she already picked the gun from Wrestler. Why can't she just
that? I literally just said that. Why don't you listen to me?
Well, I was giving the fans the due credit for posting the comment. So, but yeah, that would have been totally fun. Like, just, hey, come in, let me give you a kiss on the cheek before I kill you, and then take the letter and run really fast.
Yeah, and she can't. I don't know. She can't. And, I feel like we're podcasters. Like, they're gonna listen to us. But on the same token, I mean, that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about the show as we see it. Pick it, read it, show up. I can't kill you. I read it. And then she dies before gets to say anything out loud. I'm okay with that. Like, it was just so important, I think, to fans that she get that. I really, really do. I feel very strongly about that. And I've had plenty of time to sit on it. I still feel very, very strongly about that.
But based on the visuals, are you still saying you're at 98%, or are you at 100% that Red is Katerina?
Oh, let's go through this. Let's go through the montage. Okay.
Okay.
Whew. All right. So Liz shows up at Pascal's, and Red comes out. She goes to the street. She's got the gun. She pulls the gun on him. At that point, she decides she can't go through with it. Understandable. She has feelings for Red. No matter what those feelings are, there's 8 years of history. It's hard for her to do that.
She loves him. Remember, I love you.
That actually sounded snarky, Troy. Little snark. That's my job.
Just a little.
I will thank you to get back in your corner. All right. So she gets shot by the Boz lookalike. Lookalike, not Boz. Red kills him. And then the montage starts. Liz is dying. the montage of those that died before her. I really love that Brian Dennehy was Dom, by the way. I just,
it was a great move.
Nothing against Dennehy's replacement this season. It just, Dennehy's the one that really comes to mind when I think of Dom. So I really appreciated that. And it would have been confusing to go back and forth. So, we get those that died before. We get Tom. We get, who do we get? Jennifer. We got Dom. And then we get the people that she loves from the task force, Harold. And, you get Aram and you get Wrestler for an extended period of time. Wrestler. So you get the Keenler love. You can tell that she's thinking of love, of Keenler, of Wrestler at the end. And then, you get the Agnes moments where she's really, really thinking about Agnes and how much she loves her. And I will say, like, as she's thinking about Agnes, when they flash back to her, they cut back to her, she has this little smile that I want to say is probably my favorite moment of Megan Boone's in the whole series. I just absolutely adore the way that smile popped out. And it really felt like a mother or a parent thinking about their child as they know they're going to die. Like, that just felt like, bam, it hit me. It really, really hit me. Like, that was a beautiful moment.
Which just made the eyes widening not being there just that much more frustrating.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess, yeah. So that's a beautiful moment. And then we come back to the combined montage of Red and her mother. See, Liz's eyes are batting as if, well, first we get Red, we get a lot of moments. We get Katerina in the fire, taking Liz out of the fire. We get Red watching Agnes be born. What other moments do we get in this one? We get several. So I want to make sure
most of it. I mean, most of it's Liz and Red together, but it's like Red kisses her on top of the head, switches over to Katerina kissing young Liz on top of the head. So you get some of those flashes where it's like Red to Cat, Red to Cat.
Yeah.
You get Katerina carrying Liz out of the fire. Because Gabriel Mann's character Ilya carried her out the first time, but it was Katerina confirmed that carried her out the second time, not some random third person laying on the floor. And then it just literally goes to the weird part of the thing was the Katerina transitioning into Liz. Like that was weird because you're in Liz's
batting. Well, keep in mind at that moment she's looking at Red, right? She's looking at Red. He's right in front of her. Her eyes are batting as if trying to focus on what's right in front of her. Then Katerina blends into Liz from last week with all the people behind her. And you can read it, my opinion, as she finally figured this out, that Red is Katerina. I know that's exactly how you see it. Yes? No?
For sure.
Maybe? Or do you don't think it's very clear?
Maybe not that one in particular, because I would assume that Katerina would fade to Red, or you'd have Red looking her in the eyes and fade to Katerina. So the Katerina fading to Liz was like a mother's daughter, that kind of thing. Like, I am my mother. Those are the kind of thoughts I think is going through her head when you're going from Katerina to Liz. I am my mother's daughter.
It almost felt like they didn't want to be they didn't want to
on the nose
say it. Like, they didn't want to be too clear. So it's almost like you see Katerina and it's fuzzy and the eyes are batting because her eyes were batting, and it's basically looking like it's coming into focus. And then they used that photo as a eyes widening moment because she was dying or something. And
yeah, you could almost say like the black and white Liz from last week would be she's now transitioned into the afterlife because she's with all the other people that died. Right. And because she's in the afterlife, that's when she gets the realization of like, holy crap, you were there the whole time.
Yeah. Could definitely see that. Again, I feel like for most viewers, I don't think it's clear enough. I just don't. And that's
a casual viewer would not dissect it that way. They would not.
And it goes back to my 8-year slap to fans. But she, we got no strong indication that she figured it out. It isn't about me knowing. Like, I can't stress this enough because I know people are going to make that case. But you don't need to know. It's about her knowing. That's my problem. That's my only problem. It's 8 years we've been on this journey with her, and that's like been. And I'm fine with the tragedy. I'm fine with Red failing and all that jive. We're going to come back to that. But it's that moment that was so important, and I just don't feel.
Yeah, that's
that portion was great.
They wanted to keep season 9 going, and it keeps season 9 going. Can't know his identity for real, because obviously no one's going to come back for the show. But I think that's the one network note that NBC and Sony messed up on, was not making it 100% clear that Liz knew the answer.
I mean, that's an opinion. Obviously, I don't want to.
It's an opinion, yeah. I mean,
slam anybody, but
no.
And then this is where I think it's clearer. Okay, I do think people aren't going to like this, so settle in.
That's why Aaron's delivering it, because you guys don't like Aaron anyway. So
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Because if Troy delivers it, nobody's going to believe it. People that aren't on board aren't going to believe it anyway. So
right.
If you go and you rewatch it, and I've rewatched it, like I said, like 15 times. So this is exactly how it plays. It's very obvious that Liz dies, that she's gone. There's a moment, Red he's holding her, he's kissing her.
Her
she
eyes
dies.
close. Yep.
Eyes closed. She's gone. And then there's one last flashback, but this time it's of Katerina holding Liz as a baby in the same manner that Red is holding Liz.
And the camera angle is from over Liz's shoulder, pointed at Red. So you see Red's face, just like you're seeing Katerina's face.
Right.
So from a visual perspective, it's like, oh, okay, there's your reveal.
There's your confirmation. To me, that was, okay, that's as close as you can get to saying it without actually coming out and saying, hey, guess what, guys? I'm Katerina. What?
Was Katerina.
Sorry, was Katerina. Sorry. So that's what I read from that. I mean, when you think about it, Red's kind of on the nose. She had red hair. I've said this before. It still makes me laugh. So, I told you the whole time. Were we listening? No. So that's what
I was.
Took. God, if I have to hear this for the rest of my life. That's what I took from it. Anything you want to add to that moment, like for clarity or anything else?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it was clear? Do you feel like
I think it was more clear to the fans than it was to Liz. That's the sad part. I think.
Well, yeah.
The fans were like, yes, we got an answer. And I have no idea where this is going to go, because if I was her mother, I now have to live with the fact that I have completely destroyed my 30-year project, everything I've worked for. Like, what does he do next? Does he get revenge? Does it, all of that, like just crazy questions come out. Like we always said, you could reveal the answer and set up a whole new story of questions and other mythology without a problem, because I have so many questions now.
Right. It was interesting. It was very interesting. It's an interesting way to go. I liked it. And by the way, I'm sure there's going to be some people who want to say that the arm around Katerina in the flashback, who is the arm? Well, it was Constantine. It was Kirk.
It was the black and white episode last week.
Yep.
Right. Raymond Reddington couldn't be at her birth. Constantine was in the bed with her when she was born. That's Constantine's arm. It's not a third person. It's not the flannel mark. It's not any of that weird stuff. It's just what it is. A husband and a wife with her daughter, not his daughter.
Right. Okay. So now we come to, who is Red? Is it confirmed? Do you feel like it's confirmed?
To the fans, 100%.
You do?
Okay. 110%. I mean, I thought it was confirmed. I thought it was confirmed.
So bad?
I thought it was
legitimately you can look at this objectively, if that's possible from you anymore. And you think that it's objectively confirmed, in your opinion.
And from a concept of film study, I think you can have a film study student sit down and go through this and go, yep. I think you could have done that last week, to be honest. Like I was 100% last week. This week it's like
film critic. I'm on Rotten Tomatoes, so does that count? I mean, I don't know.
You said you said the same thing that I said, so that means you confirmed it too.
I think the way that it was presented is confirmation, yes, because she was already gone. It wasn't her flashback anymore. That was Red's flashback.
Correct.
And since he's not Kirk, and he can't be Kirk, and the pieces fit, whether you like it or not, the pieces fit. I mean, if you really do go back and look, there's a couple relative you definitely waffle, but you can get around those. Overall, the story fits.
It sure does. Do you want to talk about those, the things that don't fit?
Go. What do you want to talk about? Relatively ordinary life. I think that doesn't fit.
I think it does.
Please share your. I don't need to really explain why I don't think it fits. Well, she's a spy and a criminal and But I could see when she was married to Kirk, it was kind of an ordinary life at that time.
Yeah, and she was with Raymond Reddington for 2 years, living a relatively normal life, raising a family in the Tacoma Park house. paying bills, all of that stuff. So I think that totally gels. I think there's two real big ones that irk me in trying to piece it all together where I go.
She wasn't living in Tacoma House for 2 years.
She was there she was off and on for 2 years.
She was like a weekend. That's when it happened. Like
she
over
came,
a weekend.
she came 4 weekends, but she
okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, you made it sound like she was living there for 2 years, and that's not the truth.
No, she came on and off when Carla was on business trips.
Just clarifying.
Wasn't that living there permanently? It wasn't like it was, All
right, move on. Let's go.
Yeah. But the two big things that I have are the burn scars, which we did go back and confirm. The shirt that she's wearing in the episode last week when she's in the car is the same shirt she was wearing in Rosviet. So kudos to the costume department for getting that one right. But the amount of burns, if the burns on the back of Red's back in season 1 are supposed to signify the burns from the fire, the Rosviet and the A21 last week do not play with the size of Red's burns from the first season. I have a way to clear that up with the cook. The cook is the only way, Fagin, he's the only way you can say, well, maybe the burns on Red's back in season 1 were a red herring and they weren't really from the house fire. It was really Fagin who messed up a job somewhere 20 years ago or within the last couple of years or whenever that was. Fagin said, oh, Mr. Reddington, that fire wasn't for me. I'm so sorry. And he's like, shh, don't tell anybody about that.
Well, you could hang on.
There's a way. There's an out for the writers, is what I'm saying.
There's another out there. I checked a little bit. I did a little medical research on this. You can technically get pretty high degree burns being next to heat without it burning the shirt. It's not.
Oh, snap.
No, hang on. It's not.
Aaron's like coming up with knowledge tonight, people.
Will you let me finish? Let me finish.
Wow.
It's extremely unlikely. It's more likely that if it does seem like, Red is Katarina, that probably the costume department got something wrong, would be my guess. Or somebody got something wrong, in production.
Or you just didn't want to give it away too heavily too early.
Yeah, something along those lines. They would try to keep it a little more to under vest or make it more debatable. Probably a mistake in hindsight. It happens. I mean, if you know much about production, television production, film production, those oversights happen. You'd be amazed how many things that screw up continuity are just because of a casual production mistake. It happens. So that's a possibility. It doesn't change the fact that it's still in the show, so it counts. I mean, but it is definitely there. It's very, very hard to argue around that one. That one's a very difficult one, but I do feel like there's enough to counterweigh that. There's more going for that theory and kind of cementing it. Like I said, to me, it confirmed it in that last section, that last thought that confirmed it to me.
Yeah. I mean, all the stuff that does confirm it throughout the years, the whole, like we said last week, I protected her like I told you I would ever since you put that baby girl in my arms all those years ago. Smells like Dad's Wagoneer, peanuts and gasoline, and Dom's got a Wagoneer in the driveway. Everything about me is a lie. Last week, everything about you is a lie. Just simple things throughout the years that you just went, oh my gosh. Someone made a GIF of the Tacoma house where Red comes in with Lou Lee, looks out the window and sees Bubble Girl, and then Katarina is literally standing in the same exact spot, looking at the same exact Bubble Girl scenario go across the way. So yeah, there's a lot there. The second one that has my craw is the Dembe line, end of season 4. That's the Liz will never forgive you for what you did to Katarina.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is he talking about Katarina Rostova or is he talking about Tatiana Petrova in that moment? Which is like the one way you could probably wiggle out of it is because he's talking about Tatiana Petrova and he did something to Katarina because Tatiana Petrova, fake Katarina, is Katarina. It's a real world at this moment. So that's the one way I can I'm okay. But at the same time, it's like that one's the hardest one for me to figure out a way to fit it into the theory or the reveal or the actual answer.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I want to throw this on here. Dolores says something. You and I talked about it already, but not on this podcast. We talked about it before, but it's very, very common belief. We see our mothers when we are dying. Liz wasn't even seeing Red. She was dying and seeing her life ending with her mother. I do think that's a possibility as well. That's why I said it's not clear that she figured it out at the end, which is my biggest freaking problem in this episode. It's the 8-year slap. That's what this is. In my opinion, that portion is an 8-year slap. but I do think it was confirmed for us by the end because of that scene that I talked about. That's my personal opinion. Everybody's going to see what they say.
I'm going to address this one from Lord Z because Lord Z is Bubba Girl in the video that we saw last week shows a dress on a woman in the backyard. And I'm just going to say, just because you saw one scene doesn't mean there weren't another time they looked out the window and saw the girl playing with bubbles in a 2-year period and all the weekends that she had been there. So you can't take that particular scene, because in that particular scene where you see the woman in the dress on the ground outside, Katerina is not in the window. Katerina is actually arguing with Raymond inside of the house. So it's a different Bubble Girl sequence that you're actually seeing when you compare the two in the GIF that was put out on the internet. So my 2 cents there.
Interesting. Okay, well, Liz is dead. Her friends and family died. Her child is an orphan, and it's all Red's fault. I've been saying this. This is one, like, you've been gloating for the last 2 weeks, so I'm going to gloat here because I've been saying this since day one. Red is not the hero. Everybody wants to tell me that I'm a jerk because I don't love Red as a I don't think Red's great. I love Red as a character, but I think he's the villain of the story. I've always thought that in many respects. He's more bad than good. And Liz was obviously going down the same path. But here, you see that this plan failed. Red's 30-year mission to protect Liz failed. Red failed. It's a very, Shakespearean in many ways. So what did you think of that aspect of the story? Because that's one where I will say I give them credit, and I think that's bold because that normally would not happen. Now, that's why I keep saying I don't have a problem with Liz dying, even though I wish she were alive and in hiding or something like that, because there's definitely a foundation for that in the show. And I, probably as somebody who loves the show and loves the character of Liz, I would have preferred that, obviously. But at least I could see that and it works for me. It's the slap part that I don't like. But let's talk about him failing. How do you feel about that?
So remember, as Linda Hood Cheney says here, it's not all Red's fault. It was Tom's fault.
Okay. Well, you can look at it that way, but who put Liz in Sam's hands? Who did all these things? And came back into her life.
Who
and
became Reddington in the first place? Yeah.
Didn't answer the questions that she needed. If he just would have answered the questions a long time ago, a lot of this would have been avoided. Nobody wants to say that, I guess. It's wrong to say, but it's true. It's absolutely true. That didn't. Dembe, Kaplan, all these people that died, or Kaplan died, Dembe didn't, but all these people that died or told him he needed to do it, it was the right thing to do, were correct. He was wrong. Period. Hard stop.
Yes. Yeah. It was. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy on network TV. Like, all of this work and all of this effort for what? Absolutely nothing. In the hope that as she passed away, that he got confirmation that she knew, and he's got to live with that regret. That, like, did she know? Did she not know? Could I have done more? Oh my gosh! Like, is he going to spiral? Go see an opium den for an entire summer?
again.
All of that is the stuff that is just super interesting for season 9. Because what do you do next? Do you cry? Do you wallow? Do you rise up? Do you go after people? Like, what is the plan? And I think this is where we probably have to talk about, should they have done a season 9? Because this felt like a series finale in a lot of ways.
That's always tricky. I try to be perfectly honest because I know business. I get business, and I get the business aspect of it. If you work on the show, that's your job.
Yeah, for sure.
If you have the opportunity and you want to continue and you're making a lot of money and the show's still popular, especially overseas, it's huge. Netflix, it's huge. The money's there. Spader is not getting any younger. I'm sure this is a big show for him still. Why not write it out if you can? That's how many actors feel about their TV. It's not the first TV show that's gone on for a while. Obviously, Megan didn't feel that way. She wanted to pursue other things. That's her right too. She doesn't owe us 15 years on a show just because the other people do want to stay with it. So, should they have gone to season 9 if they wanted to? Sure. I'm more creative when it comes to a show. I prefer a creative ending as opposed to a financial ending, which, like Grey's Anatomy, it's financial.
For sure.
NCIS, financial. Breaking Bad, critical.
Creative.
They're going creative. It's all about the story they're telling. I would have preferred that. So if you're asking me as a fan, I think they should have ended it this year, probably season 7. But if you're asking me, do I understand coming back? Sure, I get it.
Sure. Yeah, there's story to tell. There's tragedy.
They can figure
and
something out.
There's stuff that comes out of this. Absolutely. Dembe goes on the run and kills everybody. We just get a whole season of badass Dembe. I'd watch that in a heartbeat. Dembe and Wrestler teaming up.
I've always said, Dembe and Aram, you spin that off, I'm watching it.
For sure.
I would watch the hell out of that.
That should have been Blacklist Redemption instead of Tom and Solomon.
Oh my God. Or you could have still had Solomon in it.
Yeah.
Just not Tom. So I mean, you didn't really talk to it though. Like, what do you feel about Red failing? Like this, so you've watched for 8 years and he failed. The whole point of his mission, he failed.
This is actually really close to my hypothetical, what I would want for an ending for the show. I always said it was, there's something going on, there's a shootout, and then all of a sudden, like, Red jumps in front of the bullet to protect Liz, and you're like, why the hell would you do that? And then as he's dying, he says, I'm your mom, and he passes away, and Liz is alive, and you go cut to black, and you're like, what? Oh my gosh. Or the other way, where Red's literally trapped, and all of a sudden Liz tries to get there, and Red goes, no, Lizzie, and then boom, Lizzie gets killed, and as she's dying, Red says, I'm your mom, or were you my mom? And he says yes, because he doesn't like Liz.
I don't need that literal. I feel like that's too literal. I mean, I do like the subtle way that it was done. I think it needed to be clearer for her in particular.
I think what would have been interesting, if you would have really wanted to look at it from a Shakespearean tragedy perspective, what if the bullet would have gone through Liz completely? Because that's what happened when Townsend shot her, right? The bullet went clear through, no organs were hit. So what if the bullet went clear through Liz and also killed Reddington, and they died in each other's arms? That would be pure Shakespearean right there.
And maybe that was the original plan. I mean, we don't know because it's still going.
Right.
So we don't know, like,
what the original ending would have been.
Because Megan's leaving, but the show's coming back, so maybe that changed something. You don't know
it did.
Of what the ending was gonna
Dan Knopf said it in that interview, right? People, heads of the network change, show writers change, people come and go, and stuff flexes. It happens. This was the flex. So, which is good. Yeah.
But
more Blacklist, more Red stories. It's fine.
It could have absolutely been a series finale. And
yeah.
I think that would have been fantastic.
100%.
Yep. So, man, what do you think of, well, do you need any more of Red's backstory with Liz gone? That's one question I want to ask.
I guess it depends on where they take season 9 from this tragedy, right? Because you could do an entire, like, the 5 years leading up to coming into Liz's life, because Wrestler was chasing Red that entire time, and you could do it as a whole kind of prequel type of season. I don't know if people would be interested in that. I think it might be kind of cool, actually, because I have a hard time figuring out what happens next at this point, because he's so distraught. I failed. I'm awful. And he's just going to go hunt bad guys to do what? Hunt bad guys? It becomes a procedural show. I don't think people signed up for the procedural show. If they wanted that, they'd watch Chicago or NCIS or one of those other alphabet type shows, or just because, like, Blacklist LA or something. Like,
well, I mean, you can't just switch it to, well, now he's going to do the same thing for Agnes, because then you got a character that doesn't even learn that he failed the first time doing it that way.
Right.
So I think Agnes belongs with Scotty Hargrave or something. I mean, really.
And it's maybe where she lands up, right? Red's like, hey, something bad happened. Maybe we see Famke at the start of the next season, and Agnes goes to grandma, and then Red goes off on some crazy global escapade. Yeah. Right. Fighting bad guys in Europe for MI6. I mean, I don't know if I need a ton of backstory as far as how he set up the criminal empire. I got that answer last week, but I think it would be interesting to see and explore the Wrestler Red relationship, because now that Wrestler and Keen had feelings and
he's
other stuff, he's going to blame Red for this. And I think
there's no way the whole task force doesn't blame Red for this. I don't see how you don't, because the whole thing with his plan that went backwards, and apparently maybe Liz still had the tracker on. I don't know. Yeah,
Cooper's and he's still dying, so you still got to deal with that. So he's still dying. How does he get the help that he needs in order to survive? Maybe he doesn't want to survive, and something happens there, and then Red gets replaced by some other Cyranoid or doppelganger or whatever. But I think the big story for next year is Wrestler versus Red. That's the story I would watch. And you could delve into that time, the 5 years prior to coming into Liz's life when Wrestler was chasing him. I think that is an interesting thing to watch for a season.
Yeah. And somebody threw this out there. I got to say this because this is a good point, and hopefully I don't lose it here. But imagine if Liz had actually gone through with Red's plan to kill him and then opened the letter to find out she killed her mother. She would have had to live the rest of her life knowing she killed both her father and her mother.
Damn.
That's an excellent point.
That's fantastic. I like it. I can't find it. Otherwise I would put it up on the screen.
Yeah, but that's kind of selfish.
That's a red MO right there.
Yeah.
Sure would have been.
Like that.
I like that.
Well said. All right. So final thoughts on Megan Boone and her departure. I mean, Megan Boone herself, and we're not going to talk about why she left. Everybody keeps asking, like, why didn't you ask John that? Da, 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 da. Not our business, man. We just don't do personal stuff. That is her story to tell, not ours.
It'll come out in a press release when it comes out in a press release.
Exactly.
Maybe sometime in the next month, now that she's done with the show.
Never going to be that guy. I'm never going to be that guy.
No.
Sorry.
It's Megan's business, Megan's livelihood. Like I said, we knew she wasn't coming back and we kept it quiet. Because it's just
jackasses.
It's not a service to the fans. We are a fan podcast first. We're never going to do anything that's going to do a disservice to the fans.
So what Megan Boone, her leaving the show, Liz leaving the show. How do you feel about that?
Totally fine. I think this season was the test because, and maybe even like season 3 was a test. Like, could the show go on without Megan Boone being in the show? In season 3, it was fine. Right. We survived for the couple episodes that she was gone there. Obviously she wasn't in half the season this season, and the show was okay. I mean, granted, we were treading some water to get to a point. I'm going to be disappointed that Megan's not on the show. I thought she grew a lot over the course of the entire series. I thoroughly am going to miss the eye rolls every time Red tells a story. It's going to be sad to not have her on the show going forward, but at the same time, I think the show survives her departure.
I'm definitely going to miss her on the show. She's always welcome back on here. I was always wanting to get her back on the podcast. Anyway, maybe she will now that she's completely done. Megan, if you're listening, you're always welcome back. Please get in touch. But I think there's potential for it to work. Like I said, I wish it was a series finale because I thought her story should end when Red's story ends, but I also understand the business of it. So I'm not.
Because it was Bob Greenblatt from NBC said, that's the show. That's the love story. The two of them together. So,
yeah. So I'm very, very sad as a fan. I like Liz as a character. I said it before. I'm not going to apologize for it. I've liked Liz as a character. I don't always love the writing for the character because I don't think some of it's fair, because a lot of times she's written to carry the plot as opposed to be the most reasonable character. And that's not necessarily fair. I loved her exit here. Like I said, the moment when she's thinking of Agnes and she has that little smile and her tear in her eye is probably my favorite moment of hers in the show. And I thought that was really just wonderful. So I'm going to miss her on the show. I think the show can continue. I mean, you got Blacklisters, you have some crazy stuff. There's definitely some places they could go. I'm curious what they do and how they keep the task force going and whatnot. But yeah. And also I will say, I mean, to be fair, fans, especially this season, have not always been kind to the character or the actress. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm curious to see where it goes. Could be interesting. Could really be interesting.
So you think this is the worst ending ever?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. Absolutely. Is that what somebody said? The worst
ending?
That's
what someone said. Yeah, the worst ending.
No, I think I've illustrated what my problems were. I don't like the setup. I think it's kind of hokey in terms of it's just a way to stretch it out. I don't know how you get them to where it makes sense that they're skipping around the park and everything else and all happy and just pretending like she didn't just bring the force of hell upon him. On the same token, there are a lot of greatness. There's a lot of great things. And the moment in the park I thought was very sweet. I feel confirmation of who Red is, I thought was, okay, you did that for fans. I get it. Thank you. I appreciate that at least. It's an answer without being very direct about it. I thought the montage was actually very moving. The music, the swelling of the music, that really worked for me. I thought it was very nice to give that character a full 5-minute montage. I mean, it was a
long montage.
Yeah, I was waiting for Stallone to show up at some point and just run up the steps. But it was a great montage.
We're gonna put it up against the montage versus Red's story about the cat and the taxi and everything, and see which one was longer.
It was good. It was very good. So I mean, I feel like a character didn't get you didn't get what you wanted for the character, but I thought they did everything they could to make up for some of the problems by the end.
Yeah. I think it was good. I think it was, I mean, when I watched it the first time, I was so beside myself. I couldn't even it took me a good half hour to calm down afterwards. And then I've watched the montage, I think about the same as Aaron, 15 to 20 times. I've cried in probably 18 of the 20.
Wow.
Well, I mean, because the theory is confirmed. I've been living it for 7.5 years. I was like, it was just so flippin' beautiful. I was like, oh my God, it's a love letter. It's a mom and her daughter. And I'm just, dude, I went through a whole box of Kleenex the first time.
Really? A whole box of Kleenex?
A whole box. I kid you not. I think my wife was probably a half.
Yeah. I wish there would have been, I wish we wouldn't have got the flippy floppy Liz in this episode. I really liked where she was for most of the season when she came back, and because last week was fantastic. I love that, but I still,
especially the ending.
Yeah, the montage though I thought was beautiful and heartfelt. Spader played the hell out of it. Boone played the hell out of it. So I mean, that.
And then when he puts the hat on the sidewalk and lays her head down.
We didn't even talk about that.
My gosh.
Such a great moment. He took his hat off and later, I thought that was, yes.
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. Yep. 100%. Now, how about Troy and Aaron? Because this is really like an end to our story in many ways.
Kind of.
Theory,
yeah.
in our eyes, is put to bed. The theory. Popularizing that. Debating numerous theories over the years has long been part of our appeal.
Oh man, the Adrian Shaw conclusion episode with the whisper and the bring your clips and defend yourself. That episode is still one of the most downloaded episodes. It's so great.
Yeah, it's like part of our journey. So I mean, how do you feel coming to this ending? Because in many ways, this is an end to our journey. John has talked about this is an end to this story. And then next season will be whatever it is. It's kind of an end to our journey too, in many respects, because I feel like it puts it to bed. I don't really know that there's much more in that aspect to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, we'll come back in the fall, hopefully, and just be like, okay, first episode back. What's up? No profiling questions, no listener theories, no comments, no it might be a small podcast that first time. So yeah. I don't know.
And, people are already blowing up. No, we're not saying we're not coming back for season 9. We're just talking about this. This is like Bokenkamp said, this is the end of that story. And in many respects, the Red Arena theory is a
big part of the show.
Big part of the show for many, many, many years. So it could very well be that portion is done. In terms of our show, there's going to be plenty of other things to fight about. I have no doubt about it. But so it's kind of a bittersweet moment for us too.
Yeah.
And we don't really talk about us very often.
It's like it's like a cathartic release at the same time.
You talk about yourself all the time, but I don't do that.
Yeah. That's like my brand.
Because I'm
that and Lost.
That word you're not familiar with, it's called modesty.
Modesty.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I feel it's cathartic. It's a release. It's the one thing I don't feel is like, I told you so. Great. Right?
The one thing you don't feel is what?
I told you so. Like that's not
bull.
No,
I call shenanigans. I say lies. Lies.
No,
there's definitely a part of you that has the "I told you so" in there.
No, honestly,
you've been telling me so for about 2 weeks now, roughly. So
that's because you couldn't see it. It's because you couldn't see it.
Are you sure about that? You edited all that? stuff that makes you look bad out of the podcast. I mean, I just feel, I feel like, all right, sorry, finish your story.
Now that the fans have seen the episode, like the only thing I wish, because man, like the way I felt when I saw it the first time, I'm going to be all like, whew, again. The way I saw it the first time, I was just like, please God, let the fans see it the way I saw it, because it was just so, like the whole mother and the daughter and the sacrifice and the hardship and why did you screw up her life? Damn it. Like, why did you come into her life and screw it up? And I hate you and all of those emotions. And I'm just like, if people won't see that that's the answer and still hanging on to some other theory, like, oh, you just missed such a beautiful moment. And that's my wish tonight. My wish tonight is I wish that everybody saw what I saw, because man, it was so good. So good.
I wish they did too, because I have problems, but I've already gone through them all. But there's definitely some wonderful things to see there too. And I think it's important when you're watching something like this that you have to look at the positives and the negative. If you find negatives, you got to also look at the positives.
For sure.
Yeah. I do kind of wish last week would have been the season finale. I think it would have played better, but I understand they had to write to Megan leaving the show. So that's what you have to do.
Yeah. But season 9 is coming. And for now, I guess we'll just take a long needed vacation. And yes, as someone said, get ready for Westworld, because I'm sure Westworld will be back next season. And Aaron and I do the Westworld podcast over at Beyond Westworld Podcast, beyondwestworldpodcast.com. Aaron and I are also on The Hollywood Outsider. That's thehollywoodoutsider.com. I've been on there for 2 weeks now, doing some stuff, and also wrote a review. So make sure you go over there and check that out, and we'll keep that going as long as we can in the summer months until season 9 comes back in the fall.
And we are doing a Patreon exclusive podcast at some point in the near future this summer. Only patrons can take part of it. It's going to be exclusive to Patreon. It's you. If you're a patron, you get one question, whatever your question is, and we'll answer it or talk about it, whatever.
That's for anybody. That's not $20 level, $5 level. It's whoever is a patron that stays with us through the summer and into season 9. You get one question. You can email it in. We'll make a post.
We'll make a post on Patreon, and then you just drop it in the comments for sure.
Exactly.
And then we'll do that at some point very in the near future. So if you want to do that, if you want to be part of Patreon and then support one of your favorite podcasts, whatever it is, go to Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. A special big thanks to our honorary blacklister, Patricia. Also a special shout out to our task force members, Judy and Sharon, Rory, Karen, Bobby, Jens, and now Mary, all official task force members. All of these people receive cool gifts from us, and you can get a cool gift as well if you donate at the $20 level or higher. If you want a cool t-shirt or a coffee mug, bam. That's all you have to do. You don't have to stay at that level forever, just enough to get the cool gifts.
And if you haven't checked out Patricia's site, Patricia is Blacklist Declassified. If you actually go to our website, theblacklistexposed.com, there is a button on the sidebar there that will take you over to Patricia's website, because she has all of the scripts literally written down, deciphered, Control F on your keyboard, find whatever line you want. I mean, that's the reason why this show has been so successful, is a big kudos to Patricia. So make sure you go check out those scripts, go back and find your favorite episodes. What was that line? Where did the djinn talk about, becoming a woman or feeling like a woman, or where was I holding hands with my daughter? Like all those, you get like a germ of a line. You can go search those scripts over at Blacklist Declassified. Really, really great site, really great resource. Definitely go check that out. And
I wasn't on that podcast episode, by the way. I thought I was, because you and I talked about it.
Oh, that was right. Doug Payton was on that episode.
Doug Payton did that. So I went back to listen to it. I'm like, I got to remember what I said about that, because I remember that episode and you and I talked about it a lot, but we didn't do the podcast. I'm like, man, there was so much good conversation we had about this potential possibility, but it was never in podcast form. You guys had a good conversation too. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying.
No, it was good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that's Patreon, patreon.com/theblacklistgsm. Fill the fedora. We'll put the post up there, so patrons will get their one question. We'll come back sometime, maybe 1st of August or so, somewhere around there, to do a special summer check-in with all of you as we go ahead and get into everything. But it's getting late on the East Coast, so we should probably go ahead and get on out of here, Aaron.
Yeah, we should. So that will conclude this discussion for the season. So now is the time to recommend The Blacklist to your friend, your enemy, your neighbor. And when you do, please also recommend them to listen and subscribe to the Blacklist Exposed podcast. All the case files can be found at theblacklistexposed.com and everywhere great podcasts can be found. Wow.
Yeah. So last time we're saying that until season 9. So for Aaron, this is Troy Heinrichs. Thanks so much for watching The Blacklist. Thanks so much for 8 years of awesomeness. Megan Boone, congratulations in your future endeavors. Go watch Underground Railroad on Amazon Prime. It's fantastic. Megan is in it. And we will see you guys when we see you sometime out there in the ether. Thanks so much, everybody, for a great season. And we'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you guys for being with us all season and spreading the love, even when there wasn't much love. But
hopefully there will be now.
It. Yeah. And
cool.
Thank you, Troy, for not I told you so-ing through this whole episode, because that's much appreciated. And I'm hoping they retcon the whole thing and then you're ultimately wrong by the end.
Oh my gosh, I would have to go into hiding in a Soviet nest.
I'd start a YouTube channel and every week it'd just be like, remember when Troy was wrong about this? And then I start talking about all the stuff you've edited out over the years that made you look better and me look worse.
That is definitely true. Yeah. All right. Well, have a good summer, everybody. We'll see you soon.
All right,
take care, everybody. Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinrichs. That's at Troy Heinrichs on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinrichs.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at 5popcorn. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback, but most importantly, keep yourself off of the Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.